Welcome to Wednesday Q&A on the Brilliant Fools podcast. My name is Adam Green with Greenhouse Services, Greene, Greenhouse, GHS.com. Brilliantfools.com is almost ready. We're about to roll that out, so pretty excited about that. Just excited to share with you things that God's been laying on my heart, and really excited to be a part of his work in spreading the gospel, declaring his glory, understanding who we are in Christ and how that affects, in this particular case, how that affects our businesses, how that affects the impact that what we have as business owners, the impact that it has on the world, knowing that we are stewards even of those things, even of the businesses that we have. Stewards of it, and they're to be used for his glory and to spread the gospel and be a part of something bigger. So yes, if you think your business has more that it could offer, more that it could do, if you just have that feeling that there's something more here, it's not realizing its full potential, that may be the case. But it may be the case because it could be doing more and be more focused on really spreading the gospel, glorifying God, living out for his glory. So let's just get into some Q&A here, and we'll address those things as they come up. Let's get some of the money aspect. That's one of the biggest questions that I have heard over the years as far as businesses are concerned. A lot of that has to do with a prominent part of my career has been in accounting and taxes and things like that. So money is a big question when it comes to that. And just so you know, I am an enrolled agent, not a CPA. That's a different kind of thing, but I am an enrolled agent and have an extensive background in the accounting functions from a tax aspect and from just general overall accounting, bookkeeping, practical day-to-day management decision-making aspect with financial statements. But one of the questions that I have gotten is capital. How do I increase my access to capital? I don't have a line of credit with the business. I don't have a business credit score or something like that. Someone knows how they can do it personally. I've got the ability to get a credit card. I've got the ability to put money on it and then have a credit score that way and build up my credit personally. How does that work with a business? There are business credit bureaus that you can register with and get a business credit score that could help you. I can tell you one of the things that I've seen done most, and I've done it myself with my business, is just get like an American Express card and start putting just a little bit of money on it and paying it off, a little bit of money, paying it off, kind of a situation. So if you have a subscription that the business has to some sort of, whether it's cloud storage or accounting program or something like that, you can just go ahead and put that on the business credit card. You pay it off and move from there. That could help open up some lines of credit, establishing a relationship with a banker and having the banker understand what your business is, how it works, what it's doing. They can start getting lines of credit approved for you as well once they understand and see that your business is viable. It's got a good structure to it, a good system to it. It's something that has worked in the past, will continue to work. But doing it without those personal guarantees, you know, when you're getting started, it may be necessary to use a credit card for certain things, and it's your personal credit card, and you're essentially loaning money to the business. I don't recommend this necessarily. It's simply an option. I've seen people get in trouble with it, especially when they don't pay off the card like they should, when they don't pay themselves back, when they have these loans from the owner that don't get satisfied. And depending on the business structure, you can even come into potential tax issues with that as well. So be careful about that. But the best debt is no debt at all in a small business situation for the most part. There are times when you may need to take on debt, but you're going to get the best return on investment is no debt at all. Let's put it that way. To save yourself that interest tends to give you the best return on your money. That being said, there are times you want to have that debt in order to be able to accomplish things, but it's risky. So identify your risk tolerance, how much you're willing to take out, how much you're willing to put up for what you need. Is it for labor? Is it for equipment? Is it for a building? What you're going to acquire the debt for or acquire with the debt needs to be determined. What's your return going to be on that? If you need debt to be able to pay for labor to be able to get a job done that's going to pay you well, that's one thing. If you want debt in order to be able to buy a new, a new Porsche that you're going to put in the company name, and that's just going to be the car that you drive, that may not be the best return on your investment. And then again, if you're a lawyer, that's how people actually end up paying you, because they see you drive a nice car, then maybe it is. And I say that because I've actually seen that be the case before. A guy who used to drive a Honda Accord or something like that, Toyota Camry, and people really didn't trust him much, didn't really want to pay him for the work he was doing, the legal work he was doing for them. And nothing changed. He didn't get any more education or anything. He just bought a nice car. It was like a Mercedes or BMW or something like that. And then people were paying him without question. They just started paying him without question. They just assumed that's what a lawyer should drive. Therefore, he must be a good lawyer, because a good lawyer is going to have a nice car, kind of a situation. He didn't even like the car, but people were paying him. And so it ended up being a good return on his investment for the debt that he ended up having. But it's a risk. Every debt is a risk. So take that into consideration. Let's talk about some people and personnel type issues. A question that I've had come up, and I seem to hear it more as I get older. And I don't know if it's just because of the people that I'm around. My friends are getting older. So I hear people talk about it's hard to find good labor. It's hard to find skilled workers or loyal employees. Employees just want to leave you, and that didn't used to be the case. That may be true. It may be true that people were more loyal in the past. I feel like that's a fairly distant past at this point. And even if that was the case, it's not the case now. And there's a passage in the Bible that says, don't ask yourself why the former days were better than these, because it's not from wisdom that you ask this. So it's not that it's necessarily better or worse whether someone's loyal or not. It's just that it is. It's the way it is. And so how do I adjust to that? I think of a place like, let's say a Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A is well regarded as a place that people want to be, people want to work, or at least it has been that way in the past. I'm assuming it still is now. But I worked there for a little while, 20 years ago. And the people that were there were willing to take less pay at Chick-fil-A than they would have gotten somewhere else, because they knew the environment was right. They knew that people cared about their people. They knew that people wanted to be there. Chick-fil-A hired on skill, and it took a lot of interviews to get in there. So they wanted to make sure that you were going to be the right fit, that you were going to be able to accomplish what it is you wanted to accomplish. Oftentimes, I think as small business owners, we get into a situation where we see that we need something and we need someone in a particular position. So we see maybe even that they're credentialed for that position, and we just hire them and stick them in there. But in reality, maybe spending a little bit longer on the front side will avoid months of revolving door turnover in that position. If I took instead a month or two of really digging into the hiring process and vetting people, maybe I'd be able to find more skilled workers that way. Maybe I do need to shift the way I incentivize my workers. But a lot of times the culture of a company is going to affect the loyalty of the employees. And you may find that you can hire more on the character of someone than someone's ability, and be able to train that ability up as well. So it all depends on what that situation is that you're looking for. So really stepping back, evaluating, what do I need here? What do I actually have to have? What can I train for? And am I looking for the right fit on an ability perspective? Is that what the job calls for? Or can I hire based on character and then train into the ability? We don't operate on a spirit of fear. I do want to put that in there, because a lot of times, and I've heard it many times, people say, yeah, but if I bring them in and I train them and I put all this investment in, what if they just leave? I don't want them to just leave me. And it's not just a concern. It is a fear that someone's going to leave me. I'm going to put all this money into them and then they're going to leave. And it's funny, because if I go back to the Chick-fil-A example, I know people who have worked there, done extremely well, been extremely talented. And the company itself, even though they're a huge asset to the company says, you're going to be more valuable to the world if you leave here and do your own thing. They're not fired. They're welcome to stay if they want to stay, but they're encouraged. It says, you really would do better outside of here than you would inside the company. Like, we love you here and you're a huge asset, but you just be more valuable, and it'd be better for yourself if you were outside of here. And a lot of companies will say that as a scapegoat kind of a deal, like to cover themselves when they're going to fire somebody. And we don't want you here, so we think you're better off somewhere else. But in this case, they actually mean it, and it comes through. Chick-fil-A is genuine. The people there are genuine about, we want you to succeed. And if that's not with us, then it's not with us, and that's fine. Even though you are a highly valued asset, if it's better for you to launch on your own, that's fine. And even encouraging people in it. So there's not a spirit of fear there. There's actually a spirit of encouragement, and that bleeds through and actually generates more loyalty as opposed to less loyalty. And employees want to stay in that case, and then it can be hard to help them to launch on their own sometimes as well. Let's dig back into the weeds a little bit here, into some of the details of some operations side of things. This question is about inflation, okay? And we've seen inflation, especially over the past few years, really kind of get out of control. It affects supplies, affects payroll, rent, services, all that kind of stuff. Squeezes profit margins. So what do we do about it? One of the main things to do, easiest thing to say, one of the hardest things to implement, is increase your prices. For me to increase my prices is one of the easiest things to do, especially in a materials heavy business. So, and a construction industry is an easy one for me to point to, because those materials kind of rose out of control. Housing, you've seen it reflected in housing all over the place. And if that's gone kind of out of control, then I've got to raise my prices to reflect the cost of the materials. That's unfortunate, but that's the way that has to happen. So what if it's something else though? Labor, rent, services, and you're limited in your ability to actually raise your prices. The first thing I'm going to do is say, why am I limited in my ability to raise my prices? Am I truly limited, or am I limiting myself just because of the way that I'm thinking about it? Am I valuing my product at the rate it should be valued? I've worked for someone actually for a while who had an incredibly high quality product. Didn't have all the letters beside their name, all the credentials and all that other kind of stuff that other people had, but he had experience behind it that others didn't have. And he did not price his product accordingly. the quality of his product was super high because he knew what to look for. He knew what to put into it. He knew how to get the best quality out of it. But he didn't price it in a way that was going to be sustainable over the long term. And with some encouragement, he did start seeing that and start bumping up the price, bumping up the price, bumping up the price. But it was his own thinking that limited his ability to raise his prices. It was not people's willingness to pay it. The people that didn't want to pay it, they went somewhere else and got some product from someone else, and either the quality was not as good oftentimes, or the price ended up being more, and they realized, oh, wait a minute, I got a better deal over here, and this guy gave me better service overall. It was a better experience, and so a lot of them would end up coming back to him in the end. That doesn't always happen, but that's the first thing I'm going to think about. Is it my own limited thinking that's causing me to not be able to raise prices, or is it the market itself? And if it's the market itself, then I really need to think about, do I need to find ways to increase the quality of what I have so I can be a differentiator? But I've got to increase the quality while lowering my own costs inside of it. And there may be ways to do that as well. It depends on your situation. It really depends on your situation, how that's done. But more often than not, the reason why I see that, I just can't raise prices. It's not how it works. It's not how it works. When, yeah, it is. It is the way it works. Value your quality of your work. Value the work that you do at the appropriate rate. Understand the worker is worthy of his wages. And if you need to raise your rates, raise your rates. The ones that are going to leave you, the clients that would leave you, you probably didn't want anyway because they weren't paying you enough. And more often than not, those are the ones that are the most hassle as well. Let's talk about this idea of valuation. Let's continue on this a little bit. Let's talk about business valuation and preparing for like the sale of a business, the succession plan, the exit strategy of a business. First of all, having one period is a great idea, even from the start of your business. If you can understand, how would I get out of this if I need to get out of it? There's a simple way to get out of a business if you need to get out of it, and that's stop doing it. Just cut it off, period. Boom, you're done, you're out. That's the easiest, it's the messiest way in most times, but it is super simple. Now we're done, now we're exited. But to have an actual succession plan where someone else is going to come in and take over, how do you want that to look? Is this going to go to someone you know? Is it going to go to your protege? Is it going to go to your, progeny, your children? Or is it going to go to your employees? How's that going to go? Is someone else going to come in and buy it? Excuse me. And if someone else was going to come in and buy it, what are they going to value the business at? One of the biggest determining factors of how a business is valued is how much does the owner have to be involved with it. Now, that's not the only determining factor. I've seen businesses sell for a good amount of money where the owner has to be very involved. In fact, I saw within the span of like a year, 2 businesses that were in the same industry sell. And in one of them, the owner was very involved in the delivery of the product itself. And the other one, the owner was not very involved. In other words, they were involved, but they had a whole system set up. They had people running the different parts of it. They were kind of the overseer. Excuse me again. And in the case of the one that was the overseer, they ended up selling for, it was, what was it, like 4 times as much as the other guy? So they definitely sold for more, but the other guy, understand, the one that was very involved in the business, did sell for quite well. The caveat was the owner who was very involved in the business was required to stay on with the business for, it was like 2 or 5 years or something like that, in order to be able to actually have a transition of the business. The people who bought it had done this enough, they had invested enough to where they knew how to make that transition happen, even if the owner was there. So it's not that you won't be valued, but think of it for the other business where the owner wasn't involved as much. And he still stayed on for like a year or two afterwards, just to make sure the transition was smooth. It was more of a figurehead type role, and to be able to refer to and ask questions to if need be. But it was like 4 times as much that he was able to sell his business for. So just understand, if you're looking to sell the business, how much you as a business owner are involved in the process is going to determine a lot about the valuation. But in the end, the valuation of a business really comes down to what you're willing to sell it for and what someone else is willing to pay for it, and where those two meet. That's the value of the business. I've seen as little as 10,000. I've seen multiple millions, tens of millions of dollars in my experience with closely held businesses. So what's it worth? You know, it depends. It depends on the assets you have. Do you want it to be worth multiple tens of millions? Well, then, the more planning you can do for that, the more idea you can have of it to be able to get to that point, the better off you're going to be. Do you not care about it being worth that much? You want to pass it on to your children? Let's have an exit plan. Have a clear strategy and succession plan for that. At what point are you going to not be the one that everyone answers to? Are you going to have that point? Are you going to be able to give that up, is the question. In other words, are you going to be able to not have to make the decisions and allow your children to make the decisions and move forward? And I say that thinking of very specific areas where that has happened. The owners, I believe they were brothers, but their children were going to take over the business. But man, the owners, they wanted to be the ones having a say in everything, and they had a hard time letting go. And that puts some strain on the whole situation. So there are things, the more you can plan, the more you can see it as not my business, but this belongs to the Lord, and the things that I'm doing with the business I want to affect for his kingdom, for his glory. I want to spread the gospel with it. I want people to understand who Christ is, even through the business that I have. Now I'm looking at it differently, and I'm looking at it more as a steward of it than the owner, and it's mine. It's something to grasp and hold on to. So a little bit about exit plans there. What about some compliance things? Like I said, I've been an enrolled agent for a while, worked in tax for a long time. And what about navigating tax laws? Tax laws, federal and state, those things change all the time. They're different for different states. How do you stay compliant? How do you know if you have compliance issues? I'm going to give you the best advice that I know of for this, and that is get a tax accountant. Get yourself a tax preparer. Find one that you trust, that you like, and it may take a few tax cycles to get to that point, and use them. And understand, you may not be able to use them for everything. You may have someone who is incredible at federal and state income tax level decisions, but they don't know sales tax that well. And you need sales tax compliance for 17 states and 120 different counties, okay? And if that's the case, then you're going to need to find the people that you need to find to be able to understand all that and keep you compliant. It may be as easy as ADP for payroll tax, and you're done. Or it may be something where you want to find someone who can really help you out with, say your state income taxes are pretty high and you want to buy state tax credits that are transferable, and you need to talk to somebody about that. You might need more of a personal income tax accountant to be able to help you with that. So keep that in mind. Honestly, that's the long and short of it. On the compliance and legal side, don't stress yourself out over it. Find a good accountant that works for you, that works with your level of risk tolerance as well. because you may have a good accountant, but they do not want to take any risks. They want to be super, super conservative, and you're willing to push a little bit and pay interest and penalties if it's found that you took a wrong position on a gray tax area. Or it may be the other way. You want to be super conservative. You don't want to push the envelope, but your tax accountant does. It may be time to find somebody else. So keep those things in mind. You want to make sure you match up pretty well there. Kind of like having a good relationship with the banker. Get a good relationship with your tax accountant. Now, moving on from that, let's look at some technology issues. One of the technology issues, one of the things that can be hard to deal with, is keeping up with the rapid state of change. And once again, this is not something you have to change, but it's also not something that you should look at and say, oh, it was better the way it was before. My word, my voice is horrible right now. Okay, we're going to get better here. Again, I'll go back to the Ecclesiastes 7:10. It says, do not say, why is it that the former days were better than these? For it is not from wisdom that you ask this. So in other words, things weren't necessarily better before, and they're not so good now. It's just that things were different before. And the question is more, do I need to change? Is it going to be better for me to change, or can I use what I have for now? I used a computer up until this year. I used a computer for, I believe it was somewhere in the mid 2010s or something like that, that it was an old computer. And eventually it just kind of gave out, and I had to change. I just had to. Could I have made it work otherwise? Yes, I could have, but there are things that I wouldn't have started doing, and I wouldn't have been able to work on very well, or would have been very frustrated with if I hadn't updated my my system, right? I worked with a guy one time who was convinced that he needed to get all of his old accounting records and keep them on this ridiculously old machine that barely worked at all. He honestly, and we encouraged him in this, we said, let us recreate your records. It's going to be faster. It's going to be cleaner. You're going to have access to them. We'll recreate them in the cloud. You'll be able to get them whenever you want to. And he started to go down that route, but then just couldn't let go of this legacy system that he had. And it really hurt him. It really hurt him in the end, to the extent that he lost a lot of records, got frustrated with it, kind of gave up on it, and ended up owing a lot of tax dollars because of it. Interest, penalties, everything. So don't let that happen. Being willing to change, willing to update is a good thing. Getting stuck in that past, and it's easy for me to do it too. I'm like, man, it seemed like things were so much easier back in the day. Well, based on what the Bible says, no, they weren't. There's nothing new under the sun. It's all happened before. So I shouldn't be over here asking, man, good old days, they sure were good, because that's not wisdom. It's not wisdom, not from wisdom that I'm asking that question, right? That's foolishness right there. Just a dang fool right there. So the biggest thing is, do I need to change? Is it going to be beneficial? How much time am I going to save? A lot of times these legacy systems, yeah, you might pay $1,000 for a new system, but the time that it saves, it could pay for itself in as little as a week, definitely a month. I mean, it could pay for itself super quickly. So be okay with change, but if you're just changing for change's sake, then, you know, consistency, there's a lot to be said for that as well, right? A lot to be said for consistency. Okay, let's look at the concept of burnout, leadership development of the owners, feeling isolated, feeling like there's no one to confide with, there's no one to collaborate with on these high-level decisions that is going on in the business. There are more people out there than you know that you can confide with, that you can collaborate with. I am one of those people. I would love for you to reach out to me, Greenhouse GHS, Green, greenhouseghs.com. and fill out the contact form, schedule a call. And yeah, I would love to get on that discovery call is free. I'd love to get on a call with you and just see what you got going on and how we can work things out. A lot of times it can feel like, oh, I don't have anyone because I'm the only one that's doing anything around here. Well, that can be a leadership issue. Maybe I'm not training the people like I need to train the people, building them up to be able to take on some of these high-level decisions and collaborate with me. So I have these confidants and people I can work with around me, like Moses, his father-in-law Jethro. When they were out in the desert, Moses is taking on every case that the Israelites bring to him, and Jethro's like, Moses, you got to stop this. He said, you got to spread that out, start delegating this task a little bit, not abdicating it, just leaving it, but delegating it out to people. And then he can oversee, take the more important ones that couldn't be decided, kind of like the Supreme Court does now, right? But he didn't need to be taking on all the cases and being isolated, essentially. However, I will say, like in Moses's case, he had God as his confidant. We have God as our confidant, as our collaborator. Christ is my collaborator. When I'm planning out things with the business, I'm praying about it. And there's a conversation going on there. It's hard to describe if you haven't done it, but the more you do it, the easier it gets to kind of feel that prodding and that poking. And maybe it's just God using what he's already placed inside of me and inside of you to direct you in the right place. So as much as I would love to work with you, because I really enjoy those things, understand you don't need me to work with you. You don't need that anyone should teach you. You have the Holy Spirit. You have the mind of Christ. These are biblical, not just concepts, but quotes. So you've got everything you need, but man, it can go so much better if you have somebody else with you. Wherever 2 or 3 are gathered in Christ's name, he is there. So it just kind of amplifies his voice, right? 2 are better than 1. If one falls, he has someone else to pick him up. They have a better reward for their labor, right? Woe to the one who falls and has no one there to pick him up. 2 are stronger. 3 are even stronger than 1, right? You can have too many advisors, but it's good to have advisors, right? So another hitch to that, roadblock, obstacle, can be resources. So lack of time to train somebody up to get them to the point where they can be a collaborator, and lack of money to be able to get someone there can also be an issue. Most places that I've seen where I can outsource the collaboration, they want a hefty fee. I can tell you for me, and I'm sure there are others out there like me, I will work with you on whatever the fee is and how that's structured. There are ways to pay it in the future. There are ways that I would be willing to pay others to collaborate if they would take a percentage of sales or increase in sales. I'm fine with that. And depending on what I need to make a sale, if I had, even a large chunk of the percentage of that increase in sales go to the person I'm collaborating with, I'm good with that. Or a percentage of overall sales go to the person I'm collaborating with, I'm good with that. Even if it's cost me more in the long run than paying it up front, if I don't have the resources up front to do that. If you got the resources right now, just pay it. You have you'll pay less. But all that to say, I know I'm willing to work with people to be able to make it affordable. Not cheap. You're going to get high quality stuff, but it's going to be affordable. And I am sure there are others out there with a little bit of research, a little bit of work, searching for it, asking, seeking, knocking. You'll find others who will find the same. So you can collaborate with somebody. You are not alone, and you are definitely not as alone as it may feel like you are at times. That is the enemy at work on your mind, trying to tell you lies. Because he promised he will never leave us nor forsake us. And that's a truth that we stick with, right? Hopefully this has been helpful. Hopefully it's been encouraging as well. Again, you can go to brilliantfools.com, Greenhouse GHS, GREENE, greenhousehs.com. Schedule a call with me, and I definitely would like to talk with you. You can leave a comment, hopefully on this particular episode, and I will do my best to answer that as well. Hope to hear from you, and to God be the glory.